Dragon Age The Veilguard is getting drugged through the mud, and today we're going to talk about it. Let's get to it. Before we get into anything, I just want to let you all know this is going to be as non-spoilery as I can possibly make it. There's a very serious, problematic trend going on in gaming right now. At some point in time, it has become the popular cool thing to do to find some random obscure thing about a game and just rip a game apart over said thing. A majority of the time, this has to do with DEI stuff, and if not that, then they'll do other things like go after writing. And I think a lot of this is in part due to the fact that rage bait content gets more clicks. So you have a situation where this creates an echo chamber of just everybody doing the same thing, complaining about the same thing that one person complained about, and it got a lot of clicks because it rage baited people. But the problem with this is it ruins people's perception of a game. When you got tons of popular YouTubers and other content creators online complaining about a single part of a game, that is all you start to hear about and associate the game with, and it can ruin the game for you if you're already playing it, and it can also just stop people from buying a game that they may otherwise actually enjoy. So with all that said, I want to actually talk about the legit good and bad of Dragon Age The Veilguard from realistic expectations and a non-biased standpoint. Let's start off with DEI. Is it DEI? Yes, it is. This means nothing. Baldur's Gate 3 had about as much DEI as you could shove into a video game, and it broke records and won I don't even know how many awards. There are a few cringy moments related to this in the game, but it's conversations that you can skip through relatively quickly that you can then just forget ever happened. It does not affect the overall gameplay of the game at all. So unless hearing about someone possibly being trans just burns your little ears, this should just be a non-issue. Next, let's talk about the writing. The writing in this game is some of the most hit and miss writing I have ever seen. Literally, it can go from holy crap, I'm so invested right now to oh my god, that was the cringiest thing I've ever heard in a single conversation with a person. And that's not even an exaggeration. It literally zeros to 100s itself quite frequently. And I think that's a big problem that people have with the writing with this game. It's not bad inherently, it's extremely inconsistent, which is not one and the same. For example, I'm actually starting to feel sorry for one of the so-called bad people, and this is a spoiler-free video, so obviously I'm not going to tell you who or what, but the writing actually has me feeling sorry for someone who is portrayed as bad in the story, which means there are some good elements to the overall writing, otherwise it wouldn't be able to influence me on an emotional level like it's doing. Now, it may be different for you. You may feel emotional towards another character and not the same one that I feel in the same way, but I can guarantee at some point there are going to be some aspects of the story that will grip you. It may not be the main arcing story, it could be one of the side stories, but there are elements of good writing in the writing of the overall game. At times, I almost feel like there were human writers involved, like good human writers involved in this, and then it kind of got finished with AI. Can't really prove it, but it kind of feels that way at times, which could have been done because as far as I know, it's pretty much impossible to write for a video game like this in a linear fashion, just because there's so many different stories going on at one time. I don't really understand how in my head, I can't work that out in my head, how you would write linearly, so it could be possible for some stories to get partially written by people and then finished by AI, or finished by a bad writer. It could have been started by a good writer and finished by a bad writer. But I wouldn't say that the writing is bad enough to avoid the game overall. It's definitely hit or miss, but it's a lot better than some of the stuff Disney has put out in the past decade. And the writing is also boosted by the absolute phenomenal voice acting. The voice acting in this game is really good. I like it. I think they did a really good job. Everybody who was involved in the voice acting, even when they're delivering cringe dialogue, they do it well. Now, I also want to touch on something I don't see a lot of people talking about, and that's how the story unfolds. Imagine if you took an action movie and you turned it into a role-playing game. More often than not, that's what this feels like. For example, you'll get a quest to go get a person. Now, in a lot of games, you'll just discover a new person naturally. Randomly throughout your gameplay, you'll be like, oh, here's a new person. They want to join your party. This is more what you expect from a traditional RPG. In this game, it's like, we got to go find this new person. Okay, we're going to meet them here. You fast travel to that location and it's an immediate cutscene and you're introduced to that person. And then you go do something for that person. They tell you what you're about to do because they need help with something before they can join you. So, and then you're just initiated into another cutscene that follows up with the original introduction that then leads into the actual quest that you're going to do. There's a lot of time jumps, a lot of information left out that you're just left to fill in with your own brain, similar to like an action movie. Very fast paced, very moving quickly. I think this this helps to actually bolster the game. I like the way that they did this. I like that it's like playing an action movie. But if you're looking for more of a traditional RPG experience, this may be a deal breaker for you. And I want to make it very clear that this game is not a traditional RPG experience. This is not Baldur's Gate. This is not Disco Elysium. This is not Cyberpunk. Okay, now on to the big one, the thing that matters more than pretty much the rest of this stuff, and that is gameplay mechanics. I want to start by talking about a gameplay mechanic that annoys me to no end, and then we're going to talk about combat, which is one of the gameplay mechanics that I think was phenomenally done, and I'll discuss why I think so. The way they did items and shops and finding loot in this game is so unbelievably frustrating at times. Everything has to be upgraded in some aspect. So your shops that you get with the faction traders have to be upgraded. Your crafting shop back at your main base, in which you add enchantments and upgrade your gear, has to be upgraded. And it's not like it's some easy thing to do. So let's take a look at the faction vendors, for example. This was so terribly done. It's just so bad. So you have to earn faction favor to upgrade a faction vendor, which can be done well, and I'll talk about how in a minute. Not only do you have to earn this favor in order to upgrade them, you also have to spend resources to upgrade them, and these are the same resources that you spend to upgrade your items. So in order to upgrade every vendor, you're going to run into a situation where you're going to be grinding for those resources if you also want to upgrade your items, or vice versa. If you go upgrading a bunch of items to test out different builds, which is something you can do, and I'll talk about how cool that is here in a minute, you're then going to be grinding to get all the resources that you need to upgrade said faction workshop. This is such terrible game design. Like, I just don't even understand how something like this gets put out. It's just bad. Nothing about it feels good. Now, what they could have done, which would have been a very simple thing to do, which we've seen in other games it works well, is just you are in faction rep, you get new items to the vendor. That's it. The more faction rep you have, the better items they sell you. They don't even show you what items they're gonna sell you. They have some, you earn some more faction rep with them, you come back, they have some new items. This is the equivalent to opening a chest and finding something cool inside. It gives you that nice hit of dopamine, and it feels good, and it doesn't feel too grindy because you're gonna be wanting to do side quests and stuff anyway, and those quests take you out and you do fun adventures, and you come back and you get rewarded. Well, hopefully you get rewarded twice. You get rewarded at the end of the adventure with something, and then you come back and you get rewarded again with an item that you can then spend gold on to buy. That's a solid mechanic. Would work perfectly in this game and make it so much better. And this is essentially what they did with the workshop that you use back at your base to upgrade your items. You only have to collect one thing. It doesn't cost you any additional resources. You simply collect mementos and you come back and you upgrade your workshop spending that currency, and that's it. And then you are rewarded with additional levels to upgrade stuff and additional enchantments. I wish it didn't have to be upgraded, but it's overall not too terrible of a mechanic. But when you combine that with all the other stuff that they insist on you upgrading, it starts to feel a little tedious, and that leads me to the items. So items have a level, and they also have a rarity. You can find them at varying levels, and you can also upgrade those levels based on the level of your workshop back at your base. The part that is absolute trash when it comes to items is how they did the rarity. In order to increase an item's rarity, you have to find duplicates of the item. Those duplicates can be bought at a shop. Usually they're locked behind having to upgrade the vendor, which is just compounds the frustration even more. It makes the game feel more grindy. And you can also find them just out in the world in the large amount of chests that are scattered from map to map. Now, some of those chests you can't even get to until you progress to a certain point in the game. You can see them on the map, but you won't be able to get to them, which is somewhat frustrating because then you're trying to get to them, and then after about wasting 45 minutes or so, you realize, oh, this must be one that I can't get to until later, which is also terrible. And then you open the chest when you finally do get to it, and you find it's an item that you're not really using for your build, when all you really want to do is increase the rarity of the gear that you're wearing so that you can unlock the additional aspects on it so that you can improve your build more. This is extremely frustrating, to the point where I will waste time just going around collecting chests in order to try to get the stuff that I need to upgrade my gear, when I would much rather be doing quests and story progression stuff, but instead I'm wasting time trying to figure out stupid puzzles to get to random chests that are just scattered on the map for busy work. I don't know if they were trying to do something cool and innovative here or what, but it's terrible game design. I don't know why they wouldn't have just used the traditional method of item loot, where you get something, it's a rarity, it has some good stats on it, or it doesn't. You can take it back to your base, you can improve it a little bit, and eventually you're probably going to get something down the line that is significantly better and not incrementally better than what you're currently wearing. You know, the mechanic that is literally used in every RPG. And I know so far you're like, wow, all you've done is tell me stuff that makes me think I probably shouldn't touch this game at all. Let me talk about some cool stuff about this game now. First off, there isn't much in this game that is permanent as far as character progression. And what I mean by that is once you unlock your skill points, you can mix and move them around and respec your character at any given point of time as long as you are not in combat. You can refund every one of your points, you can just refund a couple of points, and it allows for more or less infinite customizability. This also includes enchantments on your weapons and your armor and your actual skills, because you can enchant your skills as well. It kind of needs this system due to the fact of how they did items, because for you to have a pretty smooth playthrough, it's best to just respec your character based on the items that you're using at any given point of time, because you're probably going to pick up something that if you respec around that thing, you're going to have a better build than what you would have if you just tried to continue using the item that you were using for your previous build or your current build. You get the idea. But as someone who really enjoys messing around with different play styles and different build styles, I absolutely adore this feature. I think this needs to be in other games. We play games for fun, not for permanence, and I get how having permanent decisions can affect your gameplay and can make your choices matter, but this game does that narratively and not with your actual character. You can also respec how your character looks. There's a mirror. You can completely change everything about your character at any given point in time as well, which is honestly something else that should just be a default mechanic in all RPGs. Nothing is worse than like picking a hairstyle that you think looks good in the character creator and then getting in game and realizing it looks like absolute trash and then not being able to change it. So the game's innate ability to literally customize anything and everything about your character at any given point of time, once again, provided you're not in combat, that's the only time it really limits you, is absolutely phenomenal and should be a standard in all RPGs. And finally, I want to talk about one of the best aspects of this game. This is where this game shines more than anything else, and that is combat. Somehow, some way, this game has a way of making you feel just powerful enough. So with most video games, it's a situation where you get to a point where you're just destroying everything. Very few things end up being a challenge for you because you have gotten an item that made your build become godlike, or you've just leveled to the point where all the skills that you have picked up or attributes that you have picked up or perks that you have picked up culminate together to just make you some godlike being. And while this is inherent in most games, a large problem with it is that it will make the game start to feel boring. You'll lose that challenge and you'll just be running around one-shotting everything, and then it just starts to feel grindy and the excitement drops off and you don't get that dopamine reward that you get for doing something that felt challenging. So far, at close to 50 hours in this game, I have yet to feel like that. I started to feel like that at one point. The build I had was so strong, felt so good, so OP that I was close to making a video about it, and then all of a sudden it did not. I can still absolutely destroy smaller adds, smaller creatures. They pose no challenge, but the game will often throw in a big creature that does pose a challenge, and it gets mixed in and they show up randomly. So you never know what's going to happen. At one second, you think this is going to be an easy fight. Next thing you know, you got a bit of a challenge on your hands. And this is just absolutely phenomenal because it always keeps me on that edge of, like I said, just feeling strong enough, just enough that I can do the content, but challenging enough that once I do the content, I feel super excited that I managed to accomplish it. This feeling is even stronger when it comes to pretty much any of the bosses. And the boss battles, to me, remind me a lot of Elden Ring boss battles. Some of them are a bit drawn out, and it could be because I'm doing some content that's higher level than what I am. For example, at one point I was level 20 or something or other fighting a level 40 boss, which took quite some time to actually bring it down. But I digress. The boss battles do take a bit of time to finish, and the bosses have patterns, and you learn those patterns, and it may take you dying once or twice to figure out what they got going on and how specifically to dodge them and how to go about doing the boss battle, which in my experience is very similar to Elden Ring and other Souls-like games. And Elden Ring is the only other game aside from this one that has made me feel so rewarded for just beating the boss. Like, great, you get some loot at the end, but finishing the boss was the real reward. For example, I was level 31 and fought a level 50 boss, and it took me a while while to beat this boss and multiple tries. I actually had to go away, get some upgrades for some of my items, respec a bit, and come back. Once I beat the boss, no joke, I jumped up out of my seat and screamed, "Heck yeah, take that, you SOB." And the only other game to ever make me do that is Elden Ring. So yeah, they absolutely nailed the combat, and it is one of, if not the biggest draw for me for this game and the reason I keep playing it. Sure, like I said, there's some aspects of the story I like. I kind of want to see what happens with some of the characters, but if I didn't, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. But that dopamine I get from the boss fights, I keep coming back to. That's a drug I can't get enough of. And before I give my closing thoughts, I want to point out something here. You should never just take my word for something, and you should never take any single person's word for something. Don't let some random person on YouTube tell you whether or not you should or shouldn't like a game. But if you're looking for a more general overview of how people as a whole are feeling about the game, we can take a look at Steam reviews. At the time of making this video, the game is setting at a mostly positive score. It has 14,747 reviews. Out of those, 11,672 are positive, 4,063 are negative. So overall, people's experience with this game is a positive one. So with all of that said, do I think you should rush out and spend $60 to buy this game? No. I do not. Not if you're looking for a traditional RPG experience. While I think hours-wise, there is a ton of gameplay here, a lot of that is going to be spent doing meaningless tasks, running around, trying to figure out how to get the chests that you then learn you can't get to until later, and then you go progress the story and then come back and try to get to it again. It's also going to be spent doing just random dumb puzzle after random dumb puzzle. On top of that, I don't feel that the combat alone, even though I think it is some of the most superb combat that I have seen in video games in the past decade, other aspects of the game may frustrate you to the point where that is not enough for you specifically to keep playing because you're not me. So in good conscience, I can't specifically tell you to go spend $50, $60, however much it is for you in whatever currency you're going to pay for it in order to play it. What I will suggest though is waiting until one, it goes on a pretty deep sale. I would say $20. It's a fair gamble. Or two, just rent it for a month and test it out. You can get EA Play Pro for, I think it's like $16.99 is what I paid for it because that's how I'm playing it, and play it for a month. Now, obviously, if you don't think you can complete it in a month, that is probably not financially sound advice for you, so take that into account. At $17 a month, if you're going to end up keeping it for 2 months, you might as well just buy the game. But I was raised in a time where renting video games was pretty commonplace. I grew up, we would go to the video store and rent video games all the time. So getting a subscription service for a month just to play a game isn't something that I consider a very big deal. If you look at what my parents used to pay for renting me video games back in the day compared to $16 for an entire month, it's a pretty good deal. And it's not like they stop you from canceling at any time. You could get your first month and then immediately cancel, which I would highly advise to do. I think if you were to just get it, then immediately cancel, they might refund your money. Game Pass has done that for me in the past. I don't know if EA does, but you could set yourself a reminder on your phone for like 2 days later to just make sure that you cancel it. Don't forget. And I think that just about does it. That's about as non-biased of a review as I think I can give. I really hope this helps you decide on whether or not you want to check out the game. If you're looking for some really fun combat in an RPG, I think you'll like this one, especially if you enjoy games like Elden Ring. Like I said, the item situation can be a little frustrating at times, but I'm personally able to get past that, just as I am able to get past the cringe moments in the story. All right, hopefully you all found this video helpful and informational. If you did, please consider hitting the subscribe button and notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload other videos. And if you're looking for some more of my content, you can find a link to another one of my videos on the screen right now. I want to give an absolute massive shout out and thank you to all of my channel supporters for helping to keep these videos sponsor free. You all are absolutely amazing people. If you would like to become an official channel supporter, check out the links in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're shy, you don't like to comment, just hit that thumbs up button and share your support. Until next time, thanks for watching.